Welcome, everyone. I'm Heath.
And I'm Jay.
And this is Host of Horror, podcast where we will be discussing horror films based off of predetermined themes of the month. And yeah, this is basically our little intro welcome to the show episode, I guess you would call it.
Well, more so, you get to know us a little bit before we get into the real nitty gritty of things. And you get to see how we are and how we act, and hopefully you get to love us a little bit before you start listening.
Yeah, and get a little taste of what we expect and want out of horror movies before we move forward. We'll also give a quick little breakdown of our schedule, I guess, per se.
Or how things work, I guess.
Yeah, we're figuring this out a lot.
As we go.
So, Jay, you want to start introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Jay, and I'm a filmmaker. Well, I'm a filmmaker and I'm a film student. Well, graduate. I just graduated from Arizona State University with a film degree. Woo!
Woo!
So filmmaking has been kind of a passion of mine for a good long while now, but I didn't really get a chance to take it seriously until about 2018. That's actually how me and Heath met. Is because there was a chance taken on, well, me just being a PA for a short film that he was producing. And I was there, and then everything else became history. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I wish the movie, the film, it wasn't the best, but like it was the start of a fabulous career hopefully for the both of us for film. I think when it comes to horror films, though, I'm usually not like a horror film person. Like, I never really got into it as a kid because my parents weren't really into it. Like, we never really had that kind of like, passion or interest in horror films. Like, my mom was hella Christian, so it was very like, we avoided stuff like that. Like, she doesn't even celebrate Halloween like that, so it didn't really connect. So with this, yeah, like with his, Heath was like, hey, you want to be part of a horror podcast? And I was like, IDK, I don't know. Like, my first instinct was to be like, nah, no, let's not, nope, full stop. Then I was like, how am I supposed to be a filmmaker? How am I supposed to be a student of film if I don't expose myself to different genres? And of course I've seen horror films before. Like, I'm not like a sheltered little brat anymore. But
keyword there, sheltered.
But like I would say I like what I like, but I just kind of stray away from it because it's usually outside of my comfort zone. So this is a chance for me to basically get out of my comfort zone and for me to explore myself to a different genre than what I'm used to, and to possibly get more learning out of this as a student of film, as a filmmaker, and as a movie watcher. Honestly, have to have more films to fill up my letterbox with. Because we all care about that letterbox rating, right? But what about you, Heath? Like, how did you get into this?
Well, I'd always been interested in the writing aspect of movies. Don't ask me why, but I always found the actual story, dialogue, and the way a scene is written to be interesting. No matter what the movie was, even if it's like, shitty Shrek, I would always like do a deep dive. Oh no, I love Shrek. No, don't get me wrong. But like, I would treat Shrek just like I would treat a Quentin Tarantino film, as far as writing goes.
As equals.
So I was always into the writing. I was poor and did not have good grades, nor did I care about school. So instead of jumping into college to become a filmmaker and a screenwriter like I wanted to, I jumped into background acting.
He got more money than I got from any kind of acting. Like, I wanted to do it, but like, I just never had the opportunities because I went to college.
So, well, with background acting, I traveled all around Louisiana, some parts of Texas. I went to somewhere in Florida. I went to for like a day or so.
Like Daytona or something?
I don't remember. I don't even think it was Daytona. It was like, because even like Louisiana.
What's the point?
Dude, I lived in my car for a good minute until my mom got worried about me. Okay, and then she just bought me like Airbnbs. Like she was so worried that I was sleeping in my car. She would literally be like, "I will give you I will pay for an Airbnb. You're not staying in your vehicle." Okay, bet.
Not even gonna lie, that's actually pretty sweet.
It is
like,
sweet.
My mom would be like, "All right, so you're gonna stay in that car until you figure it out." Okay, I love you. And I was like,
No, mine was the complete opposite. I was like, "Mom, I'm cool. The car is fine. It's actually quite comfortable." She's just like, "No, you're not doing that."
no son of mine is going to be a hobo living in this vehicle. But what did you do? Do you know what credits you got as a background actor?
Well, I got a few special credits in NCIS and like special background, like featured background. NCIS, Free State of Jones, and one other, I think Salem. But the real big one was background acting on Magnificent Seven, turned into featured extra, which turned into Anton Fuqua coming up to me and going, "Can you act?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can totally act." And he went, "No, you fucking can't. Shut the fuck up. You can't act." And he points next to me, and the actor standing next to me is Richie Montgomery. And he goes, "You see this man? This man has a 30+ career. This man can act. This is what I want you to say." And he gives me my line, and he goes, "Okay, now you go over it with him, and you act your ass off," and walks away. I'm like, dude, I just got yelled at by a very muscular black man. I'm scared.
Being yelled at as someone who's very famous, I would love to get yelled at by someone who's famous, especially if they're giving constructive criticism like that.
I'm not confrontational, so being yelled at all, let alone, like, I could have been yelled at by a stick, let alone a muscular bald man, okay? But yeah, it was super uncomfortable, but that led into more acting choices, which led into a bunch of short films, which led into producing a short film, which led into meeting Jay, and starting a podcast. Woo!
3 years in the making, y'all. So, like, wait. Didn't you also get stunts too?
I did get stunts. I got kicked around a few times. Yeah.
How badly did you get hurt?
Not at all. Like, at all. No, because I never.
I'm so sad.
I wasn't, because I never was a stunt person. But anytime you take a fall or a tumble, or like, even if like the stunt actor like pushes you, like puts a foot on your back and pushes you to the dirt, that's considered stunt. And you can get paid for, like, some production companies will be like, "No, we're not paying you for that." But if you fight hard enough, yeah, no, that's technically stunt.
Man in the union.
So I never got hurt. But yeah, no, I fell to the ground quite a few times.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. You
like,
got
honestly,
paid to be on the ground.
Like, honestly, the worst pain was when I was doing Roots. And I was if you watch Roots, there's a scene where T.I. is laying in the trench or something like that. And I'm literally the ass that's behind him tumbled over some logs. And my belt buckle was going into my tummy. And for whatever reason, T.I. needed several takes just to sit there and look distraught. And my tummy hurt. That belt buckle did not feel good in the tum-tum.
It's the fact that you're giving me a reason to actually watch the reboot of Roots.
Yeah, if you look behind T.I.'s head while he's looking all sad and shit, that's my ass.
I'm gonna find video evidence, and it's gonna go somewhere on his YouTube channel or wherever we post this thing at. Like, it's gonna be somewhere. So what is the point of this podcast, Heath?
The point of this podcast is I love horror movies, and I just want to talk about it.
And this is going to give me a reason to watch more things and to learn more.
Yeah, I didn't know you were, because when we first met, it was on the set of Kritia. which was the short film that I helped produce, which is a horror movie. So I just kind of assumed that you were into horror movies or anything like that.
No, I literally just wanted to like get experience on a film set. That's literally what I wanted, and I ended up getting a lot more than I thought.
Yeah, no, like my whole thought process was I need to do this with someone. I can't just do this by myself. I will not know what to say, and it's not going to sound natural whatsoever if I try to say anything without someone being there. Then I was like, who can I think of? All right, there's my little brother. No, there's someone else. No. Jay seems cool. I could talk to Jay. It won't be weird. So I was like, Jay, get your ass over here. And Jay's like, yeah, I'll be a part of it. Shows up. Okay, I've literally only seen a few horror movies, and I count Haunted Mansion as one.
I literally said that Monster House I counted as an actual horror film, okay?
And honestly, I would agree with that one.
And Haunted Mansion, but only because I liked it, even though it was a total Eddie Murphy flop, but I still count it, even though, it's Disney.
It's fun. I'll give it that. It was fun.
It was fun, and that's all it needed to be.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need.
Hopefully he can get to watch it, and we can review it. But I don't think this is ever going to happen, so...
I refuse. I refuse.
There are certain movies that I know exist that you just refuse to watch.
Well, no, like we tried to do a Haunted Mansion month or a Haunted House month, and you go, hey, remember that Wayans Brothers movie, Haunted House?
No, I want to do that because I thought it was funny, and it counts as a horror film. It counts, even though it's parody. It counts.
I'm not going to lie. The moment where he's like, Yoka, where's your furniture at? And everything just falls to the ground, and you got all these big dudes and his cousin running out of the street. That shit made me laugh.
See, that's why black folks don't mess with ghosts, because of stuff like that.
Unless they're Busta Rhymes, in which case they do kung fu on Michael Myers.
Not gonna lie, I would love to watch that.
We will eventually.
Heck yeah.
So is there a horror movie that sticks out to you as a personal favorite that you have seen either recently or in your past?
So
what would be what you're looking for in a horror movie?
So for me, I found myself liking more kind of like stuff that makes you think, more stuff that's open-ended, and I'm not really a big fan of jump scares. So like stuff like As Above, So Below, I thought it was a good movie. I just hated the jump scares. Like the more like story-based elements of it and those certain ways it was shot, I really do like. But I think that's kind of one thing I like about horror in general is that like it kind of forces you to be the most creative you can be. Because if I remember correctly, horror is probably one of the cheapest genres of filmmaking to do. And apparently it shows with the vast amount of horror movies that come out every season, let alone throughout the whole year. So I kind of like stuff that, I guess you can say more thriller aspect of it or more suspense, whereas like you found yourself being more unnerved. Mm-hmm. Like jump scares are kind of like, oh, boom, you're scared for like 5 seconds. It's cheap. Yeah. But like stuff that makes you think, it kind of lasts forever. May get you nightmares. Hi, I'm in therapy. So a movie that I really liked. So what I'm calling the Jordan Peele-averse of horror movies. And I really respect Jordan Peele because he's probably one of like the only like horror filmmaker that just happens to specialize in horror who is black. That he kind of comes from a horror fan perspective, and it shows that black people can be horror fans too. Like, and not just has to be like, people that are not black. Right. So I do have a confession though. Between the two movies that he's directed so far, I like Us a lot more than Get Out. I love Get Out. I love Get Out. It has a social commentary that is always going to be relevant to America as a whole. But Us, what I liked about Us is that the story can be the same with any kind of family. But I feel like the fact that it was a black family that was shown, and the black family being put into this whole situation when you're like having your doppelgangers basically like try to kill you to like, you know, have a freaking untethered freaking uprising and stuff. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry. But yeah, I just that stuff like that it makes me like horror. Another movie that I liked recently that I wouldn't say really counts as horror per se, but like kind of like represents more, I guess, the thriller thing. I actually liked Gothica a lot more than I thought. Like Gothica had like a whole bunch of crap thrown at it when it was first released in like '03, and there was a video that was watched and we ended up talking about it. That was like, oh yeah, was Gothica really that bad? And I was like,
are you talking about the Ryan Hollinger?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you take anything from this, go check out Ryan Hollinger. He's awesome.
And hopefully we can collaborate one day.
Dude, I would make love to that Irish man's voice. He has a sexy voice.
You're right. I had to think about it for a second. So you're right. But yeah, so
even though my fiance hates it, every time I play it, she's just like, no, turn that off.
But I really do like that, and it actually kind of gave me like more thoughts. It's like, oh, how can you take horror or thriller aspects and add other elements to it? Because like I think we were having another conversation about how Alien can be considered like to be a horror film, even though like it's more of a science fiction pioneer, but it can be both at the same time.
Alien, for sure. The first one is for sure a horror movie. Like the second one is more sci-fi action, in my opinion, and like the other one's kind of like teeter on both. The first Alien movie is literally, it's a stalker movie. Like it's a slasher film, but in space. And Alien is the slasher. I love Alien. Alien's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. If I had to pick a top 5 right here, right now, not really looking at a list or looking at my collection or anything.
Off the top of your head.
Just off the top of my head, I would probably say Alien, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist 3, Hereditary, and The Wailing.
I've only seen a handful of those.
Alien is a slasher in space. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is basically... it's so good. It's visceral. I
feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre just is.
It eats away at you. Like there's something dirty and gritty about the whole filmmaking and the style of it that really it makes you feel like it's real. Like Blair Witch Project, that's whole gimmick is that its whole gimmick is that it feels real, which it does. Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes that to an 11. Like it teeters that fine line of this is fake. I know this is fake, but also this 110% could be real, and it feels real the way they made it. Exorcist 3 it's so good. The story's good. The acting is amazing. Brad Dourif, who plays the voice of Chucky in the Child's Play films, he plays this serial killer who is trapped in this priest's body, and it's the priest that helped with the first Exorcist movie with Reagan and everything. And it has one of the best jump scares ever. Like, well, no, it's a good one. See, I think jump scares done right are good. It's mainly like the new movies that are coming out that's like, hey, we have to have 20 jump scares in one scene or else it's not scary. No, that's not true. Because in Exorcist 3, they have a whole long take, wide shot of this nurse just doing her job. She's just walking around, checking doors, filing papers, all that good shit. She turns around, walks away, and as she walks away, you get a little screech of music while a nun-looking ghost thing walks behind her with shears.
Holy crap.
That's the jump scare. That's simple. It's not in your face. It's not abrupt. It's simple and effective, and it's amazing. Hereditary, Ari Aster's debut after doing the short.
Child, that short was
what's
something
the
else.
short? Something Wrong with the Johnsons?
Something about the Johnsons.
That's it.
That short film.
I knew about Ari Aster.
Else.
I knew about Ari Aster way before Hereditary, so when I saw A24 was allowing him to do a film, I was very interested. and boy, did I really love that movie.
I'm not you saying that A24 allowed him to do a film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just feel like at this point, Ari Aster and A24 are synonymous.
Well, yeah, now, but I mean, come on. He was a nobody, and A24 was like, you know what? That
A24 was nothing before 2012.
So?
It was like they were like basically grew up together. They're like cousins.
Well, I mean, they did The Witch way before Hereditary was a thing. If anything, Robert Eggers and A24 helped build each other up.
Yeah.
Which Robert Eggers, I like. Lighthouse is I don't really consider that like a hardcore horror movie, but I love everything about that movie.
Me out. It was
love
great.
Everything about that movie.
It was freaked me out, and it was like it felt oddly homoerotic, but like
no, hardcore is
like
there's a subtext there.
There was a lot of like sex related things there, like a lot of like older men chasing after younger men, and like it was very like very like about to be like this really weird it's really bad porno. Like that's what it was about to give me.
There was a lot of tension. Like I feel like it's a lot of closeted repression, especially during that time. And you're not like, let's say like you have those feelings and you're questioning yourself for having those feelings, and then you're locked on an island with nothing but another male, and that's it. And you're horny, obviously.
Yeah, no.
So I feel like that's a hardcore subtext of that film.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of horror movies, from what I've seen, like got a lot of queer subtext to it. A lot.
There's quite a bit of homoerotic subtext in films that a lot of people didn't catch the first time, like Top Gun. But another one is Nightmare on Elm Street 2. That is literally just an allegory for being hidden in the closet.
And honestly, if you want to go back further, Frankenstein. The whole concept of Frankenstein is being like, you know, treated like another and being persecuted like because you're different, which a lot of queer people can identify with.
Yeah.
So.
And then The Wailing. You should check out The Wailing. We should check out. We'll eventually do The Wailing.
The Wailing.
It's a South Korean film.
Ooh, okay.
It's close to 3 hours. I know it's pushing 2.5 hours for sure. I don't even remember it. It's one of those movies that feels long, but you're never bored. Like it never drags. But you literally like while you're watching it, you're like, Jesus, I feel like I've spent an entire day watching this movie. But also it does not drag. You never lose interest. It's an exorcist movie. It's a demon possession movie. It has Satan. It's an allegory for being prejudiced towards people that aren't of your nationality. It's a plague movie. It's a zombie film. Like
there's a lot going on.
There's comedy in it. Like it's so serious, and then all of a sudden one of their friends dies and like gets turned into a zombie, and all of a sudden it's like this comedy act, but it works. It's amazing. And then there's this scene where it's like two exorcists, like a demon possessed guy and an exorcist, and they're fighting one another. And it's so cool. Like it's actual South Korean ancient folklore dance style, like a ritual style. And it's authentic, and they're doing that, and they're fighting each other like from long distances just through dance motions and shit. It's hard to explain why I love this movie, but I love it so much.
We gotta watch that one.
It is so good. So off the top of my head, that's my top 5.
I guess to counter that, out of the ones that I remember seeing that I think I did like, of course, I like Us. Get Out's in that top 5 too. I want to say I like the grunge. Like, okay, I actually really like the Ju-on movies.
Okay, so the original J horror.
Yeah, the original J horror movies. Ju-on. Me and my sister, she got me into the Ju-on movies. So those were, I remember liking those a lot. And I want to say The Ring was also in that same category, but like as with the like American remakes or whatever, I like The Ring.
The American remake was actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
They did a good job.
The Grunge.
The Grudge.
The Grudge. Yeah, I like those.
Grudge was okay. Ju-on's definitely the better of the two. honestly, Ringu and Ring, the American remake, they're hand in hand. I mean, they literally are on par.
Like, I remember just like seeing a whole bunch of Sadako memes and just kind of going from there. And I honestly, I really want to say, I think a lot of like the horror movies I did like before, like before I became like an adult, were rooted in comedy, because I think that was like one of the only ways that I was able to handle it. So that's why I'm like, I really am a big fan of like Scary Movie or a Haunted House, or like the stuff like the like parody movies and stuff like that. So it's like, mostly because I feel like I'm just used to having to deal with comedy to kind of balance how scary things are. Even though my sense of what's actually scary is kind of like warped now as an adult. But that's 1, 2, 3, Ju-on. I can't really think of another top 5 set. I just put Gothica since I mentioned it earlier.
We'll do a thing like at the end of the year. The films that we've seen, do like a top 5 out of all of them. I'm
trying to just like think of the stuff I've seen like from more of my childhood, because like I know I've seen like a good bit of horror movies in my childhood that like I know that I kind of like, but not really like that much, because like I said, I don't really do horror that much. But like, honestly, if you want to be real, I keep on forgetting that it exists and that, but I really like Repo. Repo, the Genetic Opera. I don't know if it counts as a horror film per se, but it has horror aesthetics. So I really, really like Repo, the Genetic Opera, and I also like Rocky Horror, of course.
That's Rocky Horror. Okay.
Like Rocky Horror Picture Show transcends. So
no, I have to explain this. Okay. So Rocky Horror is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't count it as one of my favorite horror movies because I think there are better horror movies, but as a film, this literally molded me as a child. So growing up, my family, despite my dad, he wasn't very religious, but he was conservative. My family was very religious, very conservative. They still are. My mom was the type of person who wouldn't let me watch Harry Potter because witchcraft. At the same time, and also, you know, you can't be gay because, you know, we're not going to treat you any different, but you're going to hell kind of thing. Unfortunately.
Used to that.
Yeah. But my mom was also weird with a little bit of, you know, some hypocrisy. Like, we could watch Lord of the Rings because Lord of the Rings was cool. She liked Lord of the Rings. I don't know how we couldn't watch Harry Potter, but we could watch Lord of the Rings. But hey, you know, that was her thing. Being gay was not okay. She wouldn't let us watch anything that had like a gay character or, you know, gayness in it. Rocky Horror Picture Show was the exception. You know why? My dad fucking loved Rocky Horror Picture Show. And because of that, my mom fucking loved Rocky Horror Picture Show.
So that was the exception.
That was the exception. We can't have gay, but we'll have a trans man having sex with a man. That's okay. That's okay. We can do that.
A transsexual transvestite from Transylvania.
Transsexual Transylvania.
From transsexual Transylvania. Man, that is something.
But that is one of my first peeks into horror was Rocky Horror Picture Show. From there, my dad used to love horror movies. He would watch he would have a bunch of them. So like some of the movies that molded me into loving the horror genre was Rocky Horror. And then from there, the one that scared me the most, it's probably the first horror movie I can vividly remember. And the director is a child molesting piece of shit who probably should have never directed this movie. I would have been happy if he never directed this movie. Do not buy this movie. If you do, buy it secondhand so he doesn't get a penny of it.
I just realized what movie you're talking about.
Jeepers Creepers. I have nostalgia for this movie because it literally was the movie that got me into horror. It scared the shit out of me as a child, and I love it for that. That's all I have to say.
There you go. I think another thing about, at least when it comes to me and horror, I am kind of a sucker for old movies. So one thing that drew me to film as a history was the amount of different kinds of themes that are going on in European film. So I'm a decent fan of like German expressionism, and German expressionism is one of those roots that has elements of what will become horror later on, and as the decades roll along. So with the very like high contrast lighting, the black and whites, like it's a lot of the sometimes very scary visuals that they would give on the German expression films. I do kind of like. So I think when it comes to like classic forms of horror, you can say I really like the old Nosferatu's, or the old Frankenstein's. I'm a kind of a sucker for those. But like I think when it comes to those kinds of movies, they kind of venture in. I don't know. I kind of separate it because like classic horror and modern horror feels so connected but yet so distant from each other.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to appreciate the classic horror films for one thing, and then the modern ones for another. But when I'm kind of mean by like classic and modern, I kind of split it within like the 1960s, 1950s, 1960s, like kind of like everything post the thing on I consider modern, and everything before that I consider classic.
Like, it's weird though if you really look into the history of horror. Every decade has its own unique style of horror. Like the 30s has, it's got its black and white Universal monster movies, but they're more atmospheric, more like the first Dracula had no music whatsoever, so it's haunting.
Yeah.
And then the 40s come along and it gets a little more into that camp feel, like more you can take your kids to go see this kind of feel. 50s were definitely your monster movies. 60s you have your exploitation. 70s you have your grindhouse and your more like demon possession, haunted house type shit.
That like the 70s is kind of what I see as being more of what defines modern horror moving forward, because the elements are more slasher for like more like kills, more like blood, gore, and all of that. Back then is more so just like creepy figures that appear on screen.
Yeah.
And I think once people got this, and I kind of would say that while a lot of modern horror has a good chunk of like iconic characters, iconic horror figures, I think that the classic horror ones have, I have the classes like the Draculas, the Bride of Frankenstein, even just like the Blob. Like they're like
the Blob was amazing.
Yeah, it was a very like they have very much more so iconic figures. I feel like that obviously are inspirations for what comes on later on. So
yeah, I'm glad because like the 80s, of course, you had your slashers. 90s, you had your, I would almost say like meta slashers. Like they knew that people were getting tired of slashers, so they had to reinvent the slasher. The early 2000s were clearly we're just trying, we're gonna make a remake. We're just trying to make you interested, and you had your hits here and there, like your Saws and the Ruins, the Descent, things like that. But I'm kind of glad that we're back to the old school. I feel like we're at a point where you have movies that are your campy slasher style 90s films, which I'm okay with. That's a morph of like 3 decades of horror. And you also have like your A24 films, like like your films like Jordan Peele, your directors like Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, and I would count him as more the latter end. But those kind of directors are more like your, there may be comedy in there, but it's more atmospheric. It's more topical. It's more something you would see in films that were made in the early 20s and 30s, morphing in with the 60s and 70s style and themes. Where like you have your other movies like Scout's Guide and the Christopher Landon movies. I love Scout's. I like Scout's Guide, or I really love Scout's Guide, and Happy Death Day is pretty good. I haven't seen Freaky yet. I want to give those a try, but I think he's doing that whole, I like horror, but I'm not going to take it too serious meta thing that the 90s were kind of going for.
Well, I don't know. I think the concept of found footage films were pretty interesting from the late 90s to the early thousands, and then now it's probably gonna start coming back as a result of a certain thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, well, there was a pretty good one that came out recently. I can't think of the name of it, but I think Netflix was showing it.
There was one, I think one I remember was Unfriended, was I think from the Zoom call.
Yeah.
And that one I want to see that because it just seems so just interesting as a concept, and it feels like to me horror in general are quicker to adapt to modern time, to the technology around rather than other kinds of genres.
Even the events around the one I was talking about, I can't think of the name of it, but it was done during the lockdown. And the actors had to provide their own cameras, provide their own lighting, do their own makeup, provide their own sound recording. And it was just this thing where they were Skyping one another or whatever the kids are doing nowadays. And haunted things were going. It basically was like Paranormal Activity in a sense, but they were all connected. I mean, I wanted to see it simply because I love the fact that you can still, even with something as daunting and really depressing as being locked away from people. I mean, just watch Inside to understand how being isolated can really eat away at someone. That people still found a way to be creative and connect with one another. I find that interesting, so I would like to watch that. I have to look up the name. I don't know the name of it right now.
One of the few good things that come out of this Panini Press. So it kind of leads into the themes that I think we're going to be going forward for this podcast, because he said that we're going to do predetermined themes. So yes. There's a lot of different things we can do with that. So it's very broad. What do you have in mind?
Well, every month I'm going to, we're going to discuss, because we haven't even done a full schedule yet. This is just more, we're introducing y'all to us, introducing y'all to the show and what you can look forward to. But every month is going to be a new theme. For example, I was thinking January being Haunted House Month, where every movie, no matter what year it came out, what type of movie, it just has to focus around a haunted house, that the house itself is haunted. Or, they go to a house and that's where most of the haunting happened. Anything like that. Like your Amityville Horrors and Poltergeist, things like that. Yeah, I'm not going to... I also want to try... There's films that are underrated, films that are not talked about as much, and films that, I personally just like, and I would like to see your take on them. Eventually, if we go into a second year, we'll probably try and get fan interaction or try to get a little more creative. But for right now, I'm just going with basic themes for each month and picking movies that I feel best associate with that theme.
So you get to follow along as you watch movies based on different tropes.
Woo!
And so I think I'm going to say for social media purposes, so what would there be any kind of engagement or anything that we can do for people who like to listen? What do you think about that?
I mean, I would definitely be down. What I would love to eventually do is have a month where it's just fan picks. If you listen to the show, pick a movie that you like, and if we constantly get that movie, we'll just do a whole month where it's viewer's choice or listener's choice, however we're gonna do that. Something like that, or we'll maybe we could do a thing where, like, okay, say like Haunted House. There's so many movies that could be attributed to Haunted House. So maybe, there's 4 weeks in a month, we show 8 films. Pick which 4 you want, kind of thing.
And we will review and talk about each one, and probably, have a little bit more to talk about, because more than that. Because, like, I think what I want people to get from this is not just a little bit of entertainment because of us, because we're so entertaining.
Yeah, we're bundles of joy.
But I think that what I kind of want is that we can have more films that are underappreciated, or more films that honestly would be considered cult classics if they even were talked about. Like, there's a certain movie that you showed me that I thought was very surprising that it wasn't a cult classic, that it barely got any kind of like press or any kind of like plays on YouTube or anything like that.
I think I know exactly the one you're thinking of. Is it the Thanksgiving one we plan on doing?
Yeah, I think so.
Not the cranberry sauce. That's not cranberry sauce. Is that one?
It's not cranberry sauce.
I actually am very shocked that, I found it, and it is a Thanksgiving classic per se. Like, if you look for a Thanksgiving horror movie, it's one of the first ones that pop up, but I never hear people talk about this movie whatsoever. So
hopefully, if we get that far to Thanksgiving, there will be some choices based on what I've seen that can be talked about. Good choices, who knows? But I'm just excited to see the different kinds of themes that we're going to cover, and the different kinds of movies that we'll cover that can fit into it. Because you never know what's going to fit into each one thing. And you never know what we might like, what we might dislike, because my perception of what I like in horror is obviously different from yours.
Yeah. And we're also going to have a guest every now and then. It's probably not going to be like all the time, but just to have a third perspective, especially when we get into films that are like, I would love to do Suspiria, but I would love to get, I love Suspiria. I love the original is good, and the remake is really good. Actually, the remake is my fiance's, one of my fiance's favorite horror movies. So I would love to get her perspective on it to see why she loves it. Because I love it on a filmmaking aspect. She doesn't look at movies that way. She can watch a movie where I can sit there and say, technically, it's a bad movie filmmaking-wise, but it's entertaining. I have fun watching it. And she'll not get that concept because in her mind, I had a blast watching this. This was fun. This is what I took from it. It's a good movie. I'm like, yeah, it's a good movie because you enjoyed it, but it's also technically a bad movie filmmaking wise, and we'll have that argument all night, and it's just not worth it.
Well, it's also because I think we pursue filmmaking as not only just a career, but that's just one of our hyperfixations.
Yeah, I watch too many movies.
And I watch too many video essays about movies. So it's like, I have a hyperfixation on just how certain filmmaking works. And once you get more into the study of film, it kind of ruins your perspective of a lot of films. Like, not even gonna lie, some of the favorite films that you might see as a kid or before you really start studying film may completely be decimated by the time you graduate. You're just like, why did I like that? That was a horrible movie. That was so bad. Blah, 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 blah.
Shark's Tale.
Shark's Tale is a masterpiece. How dare you?
I've been ruined.
So, okay. One non-horror movie that I absolutely loved as a kid that absolutely is horrible today. Head of State. No one talks about Head of State.
I've never even heard of that.
Exactly. It's a Chris Rock movie about him running for president. I loved that movie so much when I was a kid. I watched it all the time.
Okay, I have one that's kind of similar. Have you ever heard of Money Talks?
Okay, this is about to sound like one of those movies those like direct to DVD ones, the ones that you see clearly made for the clearance bin, but you find one of those random gems in there in the $5 rack at your local dollar store. What's this about?
It's Chris Tucker and Charlie Sheen in an action movie together.
No.
Nah, like
No.
nah, like real shit. I still love that movie. It's bad. No, it's bad. And like they don't even they're the main protagonists. They don't even get to kill one of the main bad guys.
Man.
Like the main bad guy is up like the final showdown is like at a football stadium and the main bad guy is up in the announcement booth like shooting a bazooka or whatever. And Chris Tucker calls some of his boys there to help out and two of them are like this skinny guy, this skinny guy and this bigger dude who's always sucking on a lollipop, right?
Oh my God.
The skinny guy taps on the big dude. Big dude pulls lollipop out of his mouth, hands it to little guy. Little guy holds lollipop. Big dude pulls out a bazooka. Boom. Takes homeboy out. Puts bazooka down, grabs lollipop. They're sitting down the whole time. Like, can't even be bothered to kill someone. Like, they're just like, yeah.
Okay, all of a sudden I need to watch this movie.
Dude, we'll check it out. It's
right.
good. It's bad. It's good.
Okay, one more bad movie. One more bad movie that I like. That I am ashamed to like. The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
I don't like that one.
Oh my God. How this is the kind of movie that I know it was horrible. And I hate myself for finding joy in it. But this movie sparked like the teensiest little bit of joy in me. For the sole reason of that, like I don't really see black people in sci-fi films, let alone like what seems to be sci-fi superhero films. And like the even weirder part about it is like there's virtually no like superhero aspect of it. It's just literally just like I won't even call it a comedy. Maybe like a comedy film with
it really tried to be a comedy.
It tried to be a comedy in the form of like just some sci-fi thing that took like way too long to make and it just didn't work. And it's one of those movies that like you knew it was a flop from the minute it came out, but it was still like I actually kind of enjoyed this. Like the performances from the Rosario Dawson, it was just like it was cute. Like you can tell that like they just didn't care about this movie, but like they just had a fun time just doing it. Either that or a horrible time. I can't remember. Either way, I found joy in this horrible movie, even though story-wise it's the absolute worst. And like literally it goes back to like square one. Like the status quo is back up and running whenever the end of the movie happens. You're just like, now what was all that for?
And like the twist reveal kind of comes out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere. Here's the thing. I like that it came out of nowhere, but it was still like.
But here's the thing. A good twist, you should be able to rewatch. Like a good twist, you should not see coming until you rewatch the movie and you go, "Oh, they gave hints." There was
no foreshadowing.
There was
it just
no
hint. Literally, it just happened. You're just like, what? And there was no explanation. It was just there.
It just happened.
And I'm just like, okay. But I mean, I don't even care if I spoil this film or not. Like the fact that if anybody even wants to watch this film, I'm sorry.
No, it's required viewing.
It's required viewing if you want to be a filmmaker. Is what not to do. But like, spoiler alert, the fact that like the twist came out of nowhere, that it was like, oh, he's his own bad guy. Like the whole doppelganger thing that and you're just like,
it wasn't even doppel. It was like a clone or something.
It was like clones. Yeah, it was like,
it was never fully explained.
It was not. And then it had a random cameo from, I think, William Shatner or something. It was like a random cameo from somebody that was supposed to be like playing a character, but the character is only like in archival footage. And
I think it was Shat. I don't know, dude.
I
haven't
can't
seen
remember
that movie in years.
I had to watch it for a class. I chose to watch it for a class because it was a movie. I had to do like a PowerPoint on a movie about something, and that was something that I always wanted. Was like, why was this movie made? That's kind of what I like. I found out a lot of information about this movie that I feel like, holy crap! If that movie can be produced and be shown, I know I can make a film. I know I can put a film up and it'll be like in, theaters and it'll be a hit. So it gives me confidence whenever I'm down.
I just have to remember Trauma Studios is a thing, and I feel better about myself.
Trauma Studios gave me hives. Trauma Studios is the reason I have therapy now. I'm just no. Mm-mm.
So yeah,
no.
I guess let's go over our schedule as far as like what they can expect these next couple of months. So we're not really going to do our typical thing where every month is we're going to do our typical thing with every month being a new theme, but eventually in January, what we're going to do is it's going to be weekly. You're going to get episodes every Wednesday up until we just decide to quit or retire or
we get popular and we make lots of money and people pay us to do these things
and we forget all about you who made us famous. And
no, I love my future fans. Love you guys.
I love you until I become famous, and then I will ignore you like Jared Leto ignores Bossier City.
He said he mentioned Bossier City one time when he got his Grammy. Or was it Oscar? One of the two. He mentioned Bossier City one time, and that's all we needed. Okay, I used to be a Jared Leto stan, so I'm sorry. I know I have bad taste. I'm sorry. So think of this as kind of like our pre-debut era.
Yeah. So we're gonna release this episode, which I think it's gonna be. Well, I mean, it'll be on the day that you hear this. Obviously,
it's coming out soon.
Coming out soon. And then I want to do at least because we were supposed to start doing it on Halloween. It's a horror podcast. I would have loved to start doing the monthly thing or the weekly episodes every month on Halloween. That didn't happen. But I still want to do at least one Halloween themed episode. So I think we're going to drop a special episode Halloween night, the 31st.
We think we're going to do holidays.
Yeah, holidays for the next 3 months, at least until we get to January. So we're gonna drop a special episode for Halloween, a special episode for Thanksgiving, and a special episode for Christmas. And
between that, there's going to be more just content for us to get to know you and for y'all to get to know us.
Yeah, we may do like a top favorite movies of all time, like not necessarily horror, just top favorite of all time. Do something like that. Or like our favorite films of the year. We may do that for like New Year's Eve.
And we'll have a fun time, of course. Plus, you get to kind of get a feel for what we think of filmmaking as a whole, as we are filmmakers. And you never know. It may give us an inspiration to write and make a horror film ourselves.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Patreon. Don't look up our Patreon. You'll never find it.
Oh, yeah. We totally don't have a Kickstarter.
Totally
not. But honestly, I'm honestly just here for a fun time. And I feel like we get to have a fun time, watching movies, and hopefully we'll be able to get more going, and hopefully you join along for the ride, and we'll be able to, just have a fun time.
Yeah, and we're on all the social medias that are out there. Instagram, Facebook,
YouTube, Letterboxd. Oh, and the most famous one of all, Twitter. So
but you could also join us on YouTube because we will. There's a bunch of movies coming out recently that look amazing. Like I want to see Lamb, I want to see No Time to Die, Halloween Kills, Dune. So check us out on YouTube when we may do like parking lot reviews, just quick little reviews of what we thought of our movies, spoiler free,
and you never know what's gonna happen, of course. That was my very menacing laugh.
You just made this weird.
Totally not. It's a horror podcast. I made it better.
I'm weirded out.
As you should be.
Now it's awkward.
But for real though, thank you for listening, and
Yeah, if you actually did take the time to listen to this, we really do appreciate this. This is something I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I know you as a fellow creative, I know you said doing this with me, just watching movies and talking about movies and reviewing it has sparked a creative light inside of you. So
it sparks joy.
Yeah, so honestly, the few of you that do watch this, or even if it turns out to be a lot of you, we really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you for giving us reasons to live.
Wasn't going to go that far, but yeah, no, this actually means a whole hell of a lot to us, and I just want to say that if you are out there listening to us, we really, really, from the bottom of our heart, appreciate it.
Please reach out to us on our socials that we discussed before.
Yeah, we're good about messaging back.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have a fun time. If you have any recommendations, any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, the 4 C's of a great podcast.
Yeah, just don't tell us our opinions are wrong. Anyway, so tune in.
You can tell me that mine are wrong. You'll see what you get coming to you. And this is why you're never gonna get my personals either. Maybe.
Oh, maybe Nick was right. Maybe we do need to start writing a script for these things.
I like scripts, but it feels
no.
like artificial. Like I like things natural. Like we're gonna be like so like just natural fit. It feels so ethereal.
Yeah, no. When it comes to something like this, I don't want a script.
See how well we play off each other? We're like total besties.
Total. Yeah. We just had a staring moment right there. So yeah, anyway, tune in. I think we'll be dropping that Halloween special on Halloween. You
we'll
agree?
be dropping on Halloween. And I wonder what film is going to be.
Yeah, just go to our social media and we'll drop hints. Make your comments, see if you can figure out what the movie is and all that good jazz.
The first person to guess what the movie is correctly will get a cookie.
We will mail you a cookie in the mail.
In the post. Like, may or may not be, like, bitten.
It's not going to be FedExed or UPS because we can't afford that.
It's going to be like DHL, but, like, DHL is, like, very expensive, so
I'm not DHL. No, it will come in the mail.
In the regular mail.
In the regular mail, post office.
It's gonna take 6 to 8 weeks. Like most things.
But you will get that cookie.
Maybe. I don't know what flavor you like, but we can get you something.
Raisin Bran Oats. Everyone loves Raisin Bran Oat cookies, and you cannot tell me any different.
See, I think he's lying, Your Honor, and I feel like on that note, we should end it here.
Yeah, we're done here. We've been rambling on for, like 20 minutes now? God,
literally 20 minutes.
We suck.
I think we're just good.
We're so good. We can just ramble for 20 minutes and people find
Yeah,
joy
people
in it.
will totally like our opinions.
Awesome. Well, I've been Heath.
And I've been Jay.
And this has been the inaugural episode of Host of Horrors. Tune in October 31st when we're going to have a Halloween special episode.
Woo!
Woo! We may drop something in between then. I don't know. We are figuring this out as we go.
And we hope to join along for the ride. All y'all.